Hello and welcome back to the Artisan Life. Here we will talk about how art can help you relax, improve your creativity and focus, and provide you with a little serenity in this circus we call life. So, today we are going to talk about creativity and play. One of the bigger downsides, aside from having to figure out what to eat for dinner every night of being an adult, is that so much of our daily life becomes about productivity, and we have a tendency to let go of play. We forget what it is like to immerse ourselves in the senses and how something feels. And we become so wrapped up in all of the things that we need to do or get done, we don't often make time for ourselves to immerse in creativity. So, engaging the process of art is one of the ways we can reframe our understanding and definition of what productivity is, and we can more easily tap into our creativity. So, that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. So, one of the key things about setting ourselves up for success would be creating an environment for ourselves where this is possible. In the book Your Brain on Art by Susan Magsamen, I don't know if I'm saying her last name correctly, probably not, and Ivy Ross. It's a great book about the neuroscience behind art and the impact it has on the human brain. And so far, it has just been riveting for me to learn about the research around how art impacts us. So, in their book, they talk about the core concepts of neuro arts. And one of those core concepts is an enriched environment. In the 1960s, there was a woman named Marion Diamond who was a neuroscientist, go girl, and she was a pioneer in neuroplasticity. So, Marion believed that the environment played a very large role in positive change in the brain. So she proved this by conducting some studies on cohorts of rats in three different types of cages. And love it or hate it, so much of research in neuroscience is on animals, rats and mice. So this one is no different. So, the cohorts of rats were in three different types of environments. So, one of the environments was essentially an impoverished environment, or what they refer to as an impoverished environment. It just had the basics, it had food and water, and that was it, nothing else in the cage. The second environment had those basics as well as an exercise wheel. And again, nothing else. And the third environment had the basics as well as an environment that included toys, objects, textures, which gave the rats an opportunity to explore and play. And the results of these experiments is fascinating. So, in the first group of rats that lived in the impoverished environment, it was found that this particular group lost brain mass. And the cohort with the enriched environment was found to have a 6% increase in the cerebral cortex. So, this experiment essentially proved that different types of environments can have an impact on the structural changes in the brain. So, and research around neuroscience and the arts is still continuing and continues to show us that it does have a positive impact on the brain, on our longevity, and just overall well being in general. So, if you'd like to know more about this topic, there is an organization called Americans for the Arts, and they provide funding for research on art and the impact on our lives. In a recent publication that I just looked at the other day, they measured art, health, and well being across the military. where some of the key clinical research findings showed that creative art therapies reduce symptoms of PTSD, foster an ability to um, experience hope and gratification, and reduce isolation and stigma, just to name a few of the benefits. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So while depending on your current life circumstances, where you are and whatnot, you might not be an ideal subject for one of these research studies. That said, we all have all experienced stress, overwhelm, pressures from all areas of our life, including family and work. And in the business of life, it can be really hard to create an environment or a space that is conducive to play. So, what we're going to talk about today is how you can create an environment that is enriched for yourself. And I know sometimes that's easier said than done. So, I'm going to give you 4 suggestions on how you can do this. So, the first one I have for you is essentially create an enriched environment where you want to get creative. So, you can engage as many of the senses as possible, incorporate nature, plants, or flowers. And if you're a person who does not have a green thumb and just cannot keep plants alive, try using some fake ones in your area. Try to set up an inviting a space for yourself in your home where you can easily create art. This doesn't have to be a place where you leave everything out. It can be an area of your home essentially that is comfortable, has a comfy chair, maybe something with a pillow on it that is in an area of natural light and has an accessible surface for you to set up at. Also, it would be a good idea to have some music that appeals to you that you can play when you're sitting in this area. For me, I love anything that has cellos and violins in it. That said, I do like instrumental versions of pop songs versus classical music. It's just my personal preference. And then finally, as part of this suggestion, you can light a candle or a diffuser and add an appealing scent to your environment. So that's one way in which you can enrich your art practice or your environment so you can engage in creativity. Another idea, or idea number two, is use non traditional materials to make art. In order to engage in play, sometimes we need to get away from our thinking brain and try different things to inspire creativity. So, some suggestions I have for this are use different surfaces than what are traditionally used. Obviously, some the most traditional items that come to mind would be, paper, watercolor paper, mixed media paper, or canvases to create art. Challenge yourself to try different types of surfaces. So, cardboard boxes, cut up cardboard boxes, and use the sides of cardboard boxes to create an art surface. Magazine pages or newspaper pages, scrap pieces of metal. Scrap pieces of wood that have a flat surface, to name a few. Some other materials that you can use to make art would be empty blister packs, drywall tape, peeled cardboard for the ridges, and bubble wrap. You can dip them into different medias so that you can make marks on any of your non traditional surfaces or traditional surfaces, doesn't really matter. And then for media that you can use, some things that I've seen used or I've tried using myself, which can be great, is coffee or tea or wine to stain paper or draw and paint with, charred wood from a fire or ash from a fire, colored flowers that you can rub onto your surface to create color. And then also other items that you can use, coffee grounds to rub onto the paper. They'll also leave a mark. So there's lots of different things that you can use from a materials perspective. And then finally, tools. Different types of tools that you can use to make marks with would be maybe twigs, the tines of a fork, lavender stalks, straws, or kitchen utensils. And all of those are going to make different marks depending on what media you use and what surface that you use them on. So I'd encourage you again to try to find some traditional materials, tools, and surfaces with which to make art. That can get you outside of your thinking brain around what's something is supposed to look like on the surface, the 2D surface. And it can also encourage you then to explore with those materials and engage and play a little bit more readily. So, number three would be in any environment where you are going to make art or that you're surrounding yourself with. You're spending 8 hours a day at your office or in an office area. A great thing to do is put up pictures of either your own art or art that inspires you or photos that inspires you that can essentially decorate your space with something that's meaningful to you and then boost your creativity, which then may inspire you to create yourself a little bit later. And the fourth and final suggestion I have for creating um, an atmosphere for play for you and enriching your environment is nature. Nature is the ultimate enriched environment where we can engage all of the senses. So I'd encourage you to spend some time outdoors observing the colors, textures, sounds, and smells around you. So the next time you go outside for a walk, whether or not it is in the concrete jungle of a city or a neighborhood trail, take a few minutes to observe the world around you. What do you notice? What do you see? What do you smell? Is there anything that you can touch and feel or bring home with you? It can be a great idea to bring home some found objects that you can then experiment with as a material or as a tool for a future art project. So, those are four ways in which you can try to inspire creativity and play by enriching your environment in a number of different ways. Moving on to today's suggestion for an artwork with something that might be a little bit more accessible to you right now, as you might not have done any of those things yet for yourself. So, I'm going to suggest you grab a pen and a piece of paper and you draw your breath. Many of you might think to yourself, how the heck am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to draw my breath? And so I'm just going to encourage you to go with what comes instinctually to you. I'm going to ask you to set a timer for 1 minute. You have your pen and your piece of paper, and you're going to place the tip of your pen down on one side of the paper. And while keeping it on the page, start making marks that represent your breath, whatever those feel like to you. There is no right or wrong answer. Make the marks in one direction as you move across the page for the duration of that minute. When the timer goes off, I want you to reset the timer for 1 minute and then change direction. So if you were making marks going up and down the page, now move side to side or vice versa so that the new marks cross over the first set of marks. Once the timer goes off after that second minute, I want you to stop and take a look at what you've made. Think about how it felt. Did it feel relaxing? Did it feel stressful? Did it feel um, like you had all kinds of questions about what was the right or wrong way to do it? If so, and you did have those kind of questions, you're like most people, and it takes time to learn to let go. We are learning how to, well, actually, we're relearning how to play, and what might take more time than one attempt at it. So, the goal is to interpret the instructions how you want to and follow your instincts on how to execute them without judging yourself. Again, I know, easier said than done. Try doing this exercise a few times throughout the week and see how it goes for you. I want you to observe your thoughts around it each time that you do it. Does anything change for you? Does it get easier for you to go with the flow? Um, and just get a feel for it. So, some other resources that are great to try are art and craft prompts for kids. And I know for some of you, you might think to yourself, oh, I'm not going to do arts and crafts that are for kids. I actually love them because they're quick, usually pretty simple and easy to follow, and they're all process based. I also think it's kind of ironic that these were all really made by adults for kids, and I think that they're the people that need the process guidance the least. Have you ever observed a child playing with a cardboard box instead of the toy that came in it? Same principle applies here. They will find a way and have usually no inhibitions about their own creativity that really just comes into or enters into our psyche as we age. So, the process art suggestions for kids are great for adults trying to get into a daily or weekly practice of creating art and learning to let go. So, that's all I have for you today, my friends. Let me know in the comments if you try any of what we talked about today. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy and learn to embrace the artisan life.